Hello and welcome back to the Advanced English podcast by I Speak English. My name's Hayley and today we're going to be taking a look at a topic that comes up all the time with my students and that is language learning myths. So the stuff that people think is true but actually isn't, and on the flip side a few things that might sound like nonsense but are actually pretty spot on. So in today's episode we're going to be separating the fact from the fiction, what really helps you learn a language, what's just fluff or worse, something that's actually holding you back. So whether you're learning English, Spanish, Japanese, whatever language, this one's for you. So let's get straight into it. Okay, myth number one, you're too old to learn a language. So I hear this one pretty often from students, and honestly it kind of drives me up the wall a little bit. I think people do use it as an excuse, really, not to study or just not to put more effort in. People, say, oh, I wish I'd started younger, or my brain doesn't work like it used to, or oh, it's too late for me. Absolute rubbish. So this is based on the idea that children are just better at languages. And yeah, kids do pick up things quickly, but it's not because they have some magic ability to do so. It's because they've not really got anything else to do, and also they're generally immersed in the language all day. And they don't really care if they make mistakes either. They're kind of fearless when it comes to mistakes. Adults, on the other hand, we've got baggage. We overthink, we worry that we're going to sound daft if we say something, and also we're juggling 10 other things that day. Life just gets in the way, right? But here's the kicker. We're actually better at consciously learning. We can spot patterns, we can apply grammar rules, we can make connections about things that we already know. Actually, there are some studies. There's one study in particular by Steven Pinker, who is a really interesting linguist. I've got quite a few of his books, actually. I would recommend reading his books if you're into linguistics or you want to learn a bit more about the kind of logic behind English. But Steven Pinker did a study in 2018 and he looked at nearly 700,000 English learners. And he found that even though native-like grammar might be harder to achieve after a certain age, adults can still become highly proficient in a second language, well into their 40s, their 50s, 60s, and beyond. So if anything, adults have more tools. We just have to get past this fear that we have of sounding silly. So you're not too old. You're just too worried about looking stupid. And that's what's holding you back, not your age. All right, myth number two. You can learn a language in a few months. So this one winds me up no end. Fluent in 3 months, they say. Usually while trying to sell you something like an app or a course or a YouTube channel or whatever. And look, I'm all for making learning efficient and fun. But come on, fluency in a few months, it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Learning a language properly takes time, years, in fact. You can probably make some progress in a few months, especially if you're doing it full time. But fluent? Nah. You're not going to get fluent in 3 months unless you're some kind of linguistic savant or you've locked yourself in a room with Netflix and flashcards and zero distractions. Research also backs this up as well. So the Foreign Service Institute, which trains US diplomats, has actually some of the best data on this. So according to them, it takes around 600 to 750 classroom hours to reach a professional working proficiency in a language like French or Spanish. But for more difficult languages like Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese, you're looking at over 2,200 hours. Now imagine trying to do that in a few months. It's just not realistic for most people. That doesn't mean you can't make any progress. You absolutely can, but fluency, that's a long game. The truth is, language learning, it's messy and it's non-linear. You don't just kind of start learning a language and then just go up and up and up and up like this. You're going to have ups and downs. So one day you're going to feel great, and then the next day you'll feel like you've forgotten everything. That's normal. You'll plateau. You'll have some breakthroughs, you'll fall off the wagon, you'll get back on it again. That's just part of the ride. So instead of aiming for fluent in 3 months, aim for just, a little better than yesterday, because that adds up and it's realistic. So don't get disheartened if it feels like a bit of a slog. That's normal. You're not broken. It's just how language learning works. Think marathon, not sprint. Okay, myth number 3. Lessons and textbooks are the best way to learn a language. Now, this one is a bit controversial, especially coming from someone who literally teaches English for a living, but hear me out. Textbooks and lessons are great. They give you a structure, they help you to understand grammar, they guide your learning, but if you're only using those and nothing else, you're not really going to learn the language. You're just kind of learning about the language, and there's the difference. Language, any language, is messy, it's unpredictable, and it's full of nuance. You can't learn that from a book. You've got to experience it. Hear it in action, get it wrong, try again, repeat. Think about babies, right? Babies don't sit down with a grammar guide. They absorb the language by hearing it around them all the time. Textbooks won't teach you how to deal with someone talking at you 100 miles an hour, or how to respond to someone that kind of throws a slang phrase at you. They're not going to help you when someone mumbles in a corner shop or uses idioms that aren't in your textbook. And the research agrees as well. So there's Dr. Stephen Krashen. He's quite a well-known linguist as well. He talks a lot about the importance of comprehensible input. Okay, so this is basically hearing or reading things that are just above your current level. So you're constantly stretching yourself a bit. So it's not about drilling rules, it's about exposure. So real English, or any language really, happens out there, outside the classroom, right? In cafes, online, in memes, on a bus, in awkward conversations, in music, in mistakes. So you have to live the language, not just study it. So yes, keep your grammar book, but pair it with podcasts, YouTube series, talking to strangers, generally just making a fool of yourself, and just stick with it when it gets uncomfortable. That's where the real learning actually happens. Right, moving on to number 4. A lot of you listening will probably agree with this one. Your speaking skills get better after a few drinks. Right, now this one might sound like a joke, but there is actually a bit of truth to this. Now, obviously, I'm not recommending you to go and down 3 pints before your C1 advanced exam, but the idea that a little bit of alcohol, like just enough to take the edge off, makes you speak a bit better is not completely daft. There is a study that was published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology, where German researchers gave participants a really low dose of alcohol before speaking in a foreign language, and the results were that their pronunciation and their fluency scores were higher. Not because their vocabulary magically improved, but just because their anxiety levels dropped. But it's not that alcohol makes you smarter. What it does is it switches off that annoying little voice in your head that's like, ooh, don't say that, you might sound silly. It just relaxes you. And when you relax, you speak more freely. You take risks, you stop obsessing over grammar, and you just get your words out. And that's the key, is confidence. So alcohol lowers your inhibitions, right? Which means you're less likely to overthink. You're more relaxed, and then you speak without second-guessing yourself. And if you can find that confidence without the booze, even better, because language learning is all about just getting out of your own way, okay? So just loosen up, laugh at yourself, learn to laugh at yourself. If you make a mistake, it's fine. And don't wait until you've had a pint to speak your mind. All right, myth number 5. Some languages are faster than others. This one is actually true, but it's probably not what you think. So, you might hear people say, oh my God, Spanish sounds so fast, right? Or maybe you learn Japanese, you think, I can't keep up. They're talking at 100 miles an hour. That's not just your imagination. There's real data behind that. So there was a study done in 2011 by Pellegrino, and it looked at the speed of 8 major languages and found that languages like Spanish and Japanese have higher syllabic rates, meaning that they speak more syllables per second than in other languages. While others like Mandarin, German, their syllabic rate is a lot lower. But here's what's interesting. Languages that are spoken more quickly actually tend to carry less information per syllable. So even though it sounds faster, they're not necessarily communicating more words or ideas. So it kind of balances out across the languages. So if you think of it like texting, some people type really fast, but they might only say lol or okay. Others that type slower might end up sending a whole paragraph. So it's kind of like the same idea. Just because you're faster doesn't mean that you're actually communicating more words or more ideas. So if you feel like people are talking way too fast, it's not your imagination, they might be, but your job isn't necessarily to catch every single word. It's to catch the meaning or the gist. So your brain gets better at this over time. It kind of tunes in and it gets used to the rhythm and it starts filling in the gaps automatically for you anyway. So don't panic. You're not kind of falling behind. You're not stupid. It just might take you a bit of time to adjust to whatever language you're listening to. All right, and myth number 6, our final myth. This one I hate and I wish it wasn't even a thing, but it is. That language learning learning one language hinders another one. So this, in my opinion, this myth just needs binning, right? Throw it in the bin, get rid of it. So you might have heard some people say like, oh, I don't want to start learning French because it'll mess up my Spanish. Or, I don't know, you might even have friends who've got kids and they're like, no, we're only teaching them one language because we don't want them to be slow. Like if they learn 2 languages, they won't talk as quickly. Absolute rubbish. Rubbish. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't raise your children bilingually. You'll give them a massive advantage if you do raise them bilingually, because that's how the brain works, okay? If anything, learning one language actually helps you learn another, especially if they're related languages in some way. So there's actually a growing body of research in psycholinguistics, and it shows that learning multiple languages actually strengthens your executive function. So that's your brain's ability to kind of switch between tasks, manage memory, filter out distractions. It's basically like going to the gym, but for your brain. So the more you train, the stronger your brain gets, essentially. So there's some studies that have shown like bilinguals and multilinguals, often they learn new languages more quicker and more efficiently than monolinguals, because their brain's just wired to deal with multiple vocabularies, multiple grammar systems and sounds. So you might have you might have the odd slip up, like you might say merci instead of gracias. But that's fine. It's temporary and your brain will sort it out. And actually, if you learn multiple languages, you'll start to notice patterns across languages as well. So you might start saying stuff like, oh, that's similar to German, or, we do that in Italian too. And it becomes this kind of network rather than just a jumbled mess in your mind. So if you're hesitating to start a new language because you'll think you'll mess up the one you already know, don't. Okay, you're not going to get confused. You might be a bit confused at the start, but eventually you'll be able to kind of separate them out into, the Italian box and the German box or whatever it is that you're learning. And then you'll have 2 languages at the end of it instead of 1. You'll get stronger. Alright, so there you have it, 6 language myths busted. Some of them might seem like common sense, but when you dig a bit deeper, you realise that a lot of these beliefs are just kind of holding people back. So let's just quickly recap those then, just so you're not holding yourself back. Number 1, you're not too old to learn a language, you're just a bit nervous or embarrassed. Number 2, you won't be fluent in 3 months no matter how hard you try, but you will get better. Number 3, lessons are not enough. You need to go and live the language on top of your lessons. Number 4, a drink might help you, but confidence is the real key. Number 5, some languages do sound faster, but it all evens out in the end. And number 6, learning one language will not mess up your other language. It'll probably actually help. So if you are learning English or any language, any other language, just keep going. Don't worry about perfection. Nobody's perfect anyway. No language is perfect anyway. Don't believe everything you hear and don't get discouraged just because it's hard. It's meant to be hard, but it's worth it. So thanks again for tuning in. If you're enjoying the podcast, do make sure you hit subscribe and share it with a friend who's trying to learn English or any other language, and drop me a message. Let me know any myths that you've heard as well, and I can include them in a future episode for you. If you've got any questions or anything, leave me a little comment, let me know. And if you are enjoying the podcast, do leave me a little comment and give me your feedback. Let me know if there's anything that you want me to talk about. And I will. And as usual, the transcript for this and the vocabulary list is in the description. So click that link in the description. You can download it free there. And until next time, keep learning, keep messing up. And most importantly, keep enjoying English. And I'll see you next time.